Welcome back to Cage Match. In this series, we've been talking about how there's a fight going on around us. Maybe not a fight in the sense of throwing kicks and punches, but a fight for our hearts, minds, and souls. And one that plays itself out through the ideas that we think are true and therefore allowed to guide our lives. You see, our culture often tells us that one thing is true, while God tells us another thing. And in this series, we've been looking at a few of these areas where the ideas of our culture and the ideas of Jesus come into conflict. And today our matchup is consuming versus contributing. Now, it's no secret that in our culture we have an issue with consumerism. Whether it's the massive amount of consumer debt that the average person in the US has, or the way that advertising makes us feel like we need more, we have a problem with consumption. New phones every year, new cars every 36 months, houses that keep getting bigger to fit all of our stuff. For me, where I noticed my issue with consumerism was when I started to feel like I wouldn't enjoy the things I like doing unless I was able to do them with this piece of gear or wearing these clothes. And this idea, it's everywhere. You see a picture in a magazine of an immaculately decorated house, and somewhere in your heart you start believing that you won't be able to enjoy having people into your home unless you have that furniture, or unless your living room looks like the ads in the magazine, or unless you have a big enough TV for everyone to watch the game on. Maybe you see all of the influencers on Instagram and you start to think to yourself, I'm not going to enjoy playing golf unless I look like that when I do it, or have that set of clubs. Our culture is saying having more will make you happier. Therefore, you should buy whatever you want. The crazy thing is, most of us at least recognize that this is a bold-faced lie, that more doesn't mean happier and buying everything you want doesn't lead to joy. But even though most of us conceptually understand this, we sure tend to live our lives like we believe it's true. Credit card debt, Amazon packages showing up on our porches every day, running out of storage in our homes for all the things that we accumulate for ourselves and our families. The way of our culture says, having more will make you happy, so buy and buy and buy. And even the groups within our culture that have been pushing against that mentality, they're still promoting some form of consumerism. In an interview, Tish Harrison Warren was talking about her struggle to find a way of life that wasn't as impacted by greed and consumption. And she said part of her problem was that the only way we know how to resist consumerism is with alternative consumerism. So that instead of buying conventional food, you buy organic. And instead of driving an SUV, you buy a Prius. But it's still just alternative purchasing, alternative consuming. Maybe instead of going on your luxury vacation, you go on ecotourism. But there's still this experience of consumption in it. If you've got little kids at home, you know what she's talking about. Every parent at some point gets frustrated with the massive amount of toys that they've somehow accumulated in their basement, so they get sucked into the trend of minimalism, saying you don't actually need 1,000 of these toys. What you really need is the specially curated, handcraft, all-natural set of 8 toys that will cover all of your kids' play needs. That's actually just exchanging one type of consumerism for another. And while it may be focused on less, it's still focused on how buying something is going to make your life better. This is what our culture tells us. More makes you happier. So you've got consuming in one corner of the cage match. What's in the other corner? Well, check out this passage from Jesus. He said this to his disciples, "Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you'll put on. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you by being anxious can add a single hour to his span of life? If then you're not able to do as small a thing as that, why are you anxious about the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, nor be worried. For all the nations of the world seek after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, seek his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So sell your possessions, give to the needy, provide yourself with money bags that do not grow old, and with a treasure in heaven that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The first thing to remember with this passage is that Jesus is not talking about people who are unclothed or truly hungry. This teaching is about people who are filling up their storehouses with food and clothes. They're concerned with gathering more than they actually need. Jesus is explicitly saying, don't let that type of thinking consume you. Don't let your concern for gathering up more than you really need occupy your mind. An equivalent for this would be if I wanted to buy a new grill for my outdoor cooking endeavors, and I spent all sorts of time researching and reading and considering, should I get this option or that option, or this brand or that brand? And after days of researching and watching YouTube videos, I finally buy a new grill to replace the one that I already had that honestly was working just fine. This is the idea of being anxious about accumulating more. It's when we let our minds be consumed with consuming. And Jesus makes 2 points here. He says that doing so is pointless because if God takes care of the birds and flowers, he will surely take care of you. In other words, God is the true provider, and to be too concerned about his provisions causes us to miss something. That's why Jesus makes the second point. He says that wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This is such an important statement. Jesus is saying that the things you invest your time, your money, your effort into, those will be the things that you love the most. The implication is that it makes no sense for us to treasure earthly possessions. Like everything else, they're going to get old and worn out. They're going to lose their value. And as is often said, we can't take it with us. And when we end up loving the gifts of God more than God himself, our lives get disordered and we miss out on joy and peace and relationships and purpose. And the question you're going to discuss in your group today is, which makes more sense, the way of Jesus or the way of the world? And how can we order our lives so that we don't get wrapped up in the way of the world? We'll see you next week.